All right, so welcome back to Real Estate Team Builders. Today we're going to flip the script, and Matt Johnson, who has been in the industry for over 10 years or so. I think it's been a while. We met back in the viral days. And Matt Johnson is actually the producer of Real Estate Team Builders. So we're going to flip the script, and I'm going to hand it over, and we're going to have a conversation about real estate teams, and should be a good conversation today, Matt.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to talk about the future of real estate teams. This is something both you and I think about and obsess over nearly every day, basically. I produce a lot of shows in the space, and a lot of my friends are team leaders of one sort or another. And then I am a 50% owner of a nationwide EXP team as well. So, yeah, this is something that we obsess over essentially every day. So you talk a lot about what is sustainable versus unsustainable, right? And a lot of real estate teams get themselves into areas that are not sustainable. There's a lot of things happening with traditional teams that just does not work. And a lot of people are stuck either in production, or they're so stuck in production that they almost can't leave, right? To the point where they're actually making more on their own production than their team makes them, to the point where they're losing money on the actual team itself. So there's a whole bunch of weird dynamics going on in the team world right now. So I think from somebody that's somewhat on the outside looking in, going, well, should I start a team? Or I'm already a rainmaker agent and I'm starting to build a team. Am I making a mistake? Should I back off and just be that rainmaker person? Let's start there with just what you're seeing in terms of where traditional teams are at right now. What are they struggling with? And then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, so I think, in terms of where traditional teams struggle, and even to kind of touch on the answer, like, can you build a sustainable real estate team now, or is it worth just to go the rainmaker route? I think there's always, in every business vertical, I think there's always going to be a position for a well-run group of people with different skill sets, and systems binding those people together. So I think fundamentally, what I see with traditional real estate teams is that the team owner just got busy enough where they just kind of threw some agents into the mix, like, hey, work these extra leads. But there never was a concerted, focus or effort or a vision around, like, what if you started out your real estate team building journey with a very specific outcome, like this thing has to run at 30+% profit without a single deal done by me? What would it have to look like? And that's it, like literally exactly the question I posed to myself when I started building my team. I didn't want to be like the other teams of the day. And this is back in, 2009, 10, 11, 12, when I was building my team. I saw team leaders where they were selling 300 homes, but the team owners themselves were selling 75, 80 homes a year. And, when you really started to scratch a little bit at the surface, you would see that it was not a profitable model if you stripped out the production from the team owner. Yeah. So the challenge becomes is that team owners think they're competing with a brokerage option for their agents, right? So like, why would an agent come on my team, and give me 60% of their commission check when they can, keep 80% of their check by going with another brokerage? And so just being clear as a team owner, like what your true value proposition is, and be able to articulate it and focus on, the amount of hours your agents put in and the money they take home. Splits are kind of a stupid thing that we came up as an industry, which I don't think they serve anything really.
Well, they've definitely been a source of much wailing and gnashing of teeth. Let's put it that way. Let's jump into. You want to jump into the types of compensation, because I feel like we're going there a little bit anyway. With the we'll talk about maybe the future of teams in another episode. But there's this vicious cycle that you've talked about, right? Where you start having team leaders start giving into splits that actually work. They work for the agent because they feel like they're in competition with the brokers, like you said, but they don't actually work for the team leader, and it doesn't end up being sustainable for the team, right? So how do you avoid getting into that kind of vicious cycle where you start giving into those sorts of expectations and you end up with a model that seems to work for your agents, but at the end of the day, it's not even profitable for you?
Yeah, so we've sort of we broke out the different types of compensation that you'll receive in a well-run real estate team into 8 different types of compensation, and the whole industry focuses on commission splits for the most part.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the initial I think it can go wrong, just based on that being the only measure. The team that I ran before I exited, real estate altogether last year, we had the lowest splits of any available option out there, by like 15-20%. We were at about 73-74% gross margin after we paid our brokerage and paid our inside sales and outside sales and showing agents. Everyone was paid, about 24-25% or so. And so how could you possibly run a business, with those splits? And our agents were still taking home more money than most agents, running an individual business for sure, but even in other team environments. And I think a lot of it comes down to the administrative support. Some of these traditional teams, there's really not this level of administrative support where is there, are there systems in place, but actual administrators or even VAs that are responsible for taking off of the agent's place as much as possible that, can be done for someone who's willing to make 20 to 25 bucks an hour. Most salespeople want to make, anywhere from 60, 75 to $100+ per hour. You work a 3,000 or even 2,500 hours in a year, and you want to make multiple 6 figures, you better make sure that you're on a team that is providing those administrative services. And then training and accountability is another big one. A poorly run team where the team owner is in production, super stressed for just being in all those deals, they don't have the wherewithal or the mental rack space to be able to train and coach up their agents. And so that's another big one. If you're in a team environment, you better make sure that you have access to that. And then just leadership and vision. There's something to be said for, helping, having a team owner that has the bandwidth to be able to sit down and know where their business is going and not just be caught in the rat race of deals. And then there's technology and systems, and just making the business easier for the agents in the team. Lead gen, occupancy, brand name are among the other types of compensation, but it's definitely it's not what you make. That's kind of the thing. It's not about the top line commission check. It's about what you keep in totality for the amount of time you're giving, and that's like in anything really. I mean, anyone that's trading time for money, because we're all doing it, is the trade worth it? Are you happy with the amount of, time you're putting into something and the money you're taking home and the stress you're enduring? That's the same for a team agent. And I think that falls right into retention. If you're making life easier for your agents, you're going to have a great business that's sustainable. And it's not about just paying, these splits to compete with the other options out there.
Yeah, it's a really good way to put that, because I do think team leaders feel like they're in competition with the brokerage, and if the agents believe that it's an even competition, that's when you get into the splits conversation. I think that probably the average agent, if they came up in a team environment, doesn't understand what it's like to be a solo agent, which is a completely different animal. And some of them are going to have to find out the hard way. Hey, this is what it's like to do 4 deals a month on your own. It's a nightmare. It rules your entire life, right? If you're part of a team environment that has all the admin stuff taken care of, 4 deals a month is like no sweat, right? So it's part of the problem is if you hire people straight into a team environment that hasn't had that experience of knowing what it's like to be insanely out of your mind, busy and stressed with just a few deals a month, they come up in a team environment, they go, oh, well, I can make way more money just doing the same 4 or 5 deals I do here a month, doing them on my own. It's like, well, that's great, except you don't know what it's like to do them on your own. So I think that's where team leaders potentially have to constantly reinforce the other types of compensation, and hopefully get out of the mentality of having the agents compare them to other brokerages, because it's a completely different model. It's a completely different way of doing business. It's more of I don't know if I call it an employee model, but it's definitely not a traditional broker model. And I think agents, it's nice when you have agents come in that are willing to be part of a team and they've already had enough experience out in the world by themselves to know all the value that they get, because it's hard to take someone that doesn't know the grass isn't greener on the other side and try to talk them into believing the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Yeah, and a lot of teams, when they come into real estate B school, they're not providing all the other value. So they're trying to get the team splits, but the team owner hasn't really done a good job of slowing down and building systems and making sure there's a culture and a cadence, and it's something that's worth being around, So that's the other side of it too, is that there are teams out there that really shouldn't get paid a split. So it's just kind of interesting to see, that some of these teams, end up, growing and scaling, but it's on this, even if it's sustainable, because you can maybe replace agents, it's not profitable, and it's just not a true business, because you can't extract the owner from the day-to-day activities.
Yeah. And for those that are interested and satisfied enough by the business that they still don't mind doing deals, why is that such an issue? I mean, I understand from the perspective of agents that go, man, I don't even like the day-to-day of the business anymore. I just want to get out. But there's a lot of agents out there that don't mind, especially if they're doing a sustainable number of deals in their mind, that they don't mind the active business. Why should they care about building a model where they could exit, even if they don't actively right now plan to stop doing deals forever and ever? Amen.
Yeah, I think it's irresponsible to not treat it like a true business. And that's just my personal opinion. So even if you see yourself in production forever, there may be a situation where, I just got knocked off my feet for, 2 weeks with COVID. Mm-hmm. And, luckily my coaching company is fully sustainable. I had people for 2 weeks that could run that business, but I'm only 2 hours a week in that business anyway. So I think every business needs to be built the right systems based on the right economic model, as if the owner were going to step out. And so, so I think it's an interesting question, because it's not a requirement to get out of production, right? You don't have to do that. But if you're going to be in production, you better make sure that your margins are 50-60% take home, and not, there's a guy that I brought into real estate B school. He was at 5 million GCI, and he didn't take home 7 figures. So a lot less than 20% profit, but he did about 750K GCI himself personally. Mm-hmm. And he was working 80 hours a week. Ooh. Right. So we think that some of these team leaders are making the choice to do production, where it's like, well, why would you say that it has to be out of production? Because you have to think about your business with you out of it before you can even start to build it in a way where it's sustainable. So if you took his production out, it was like low single-digit profit with his production out, mm-hmm. and replacing him. So not taking his whole numbers out, so replacing him with an agent. And that's pretty typical that we see of some of these bigger real estate teams. So it's just not something that you couldn't pay me to take over a business like that. I just wouldn't, because there's so many, everyone's on the wrong splits. There's all these lead sources. There's no tracking or accountability on any of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious. Like, not only would I not buy the business, you couldn't pay me to come in. All right, one final question on this topic. Going back to the leadership and setting the vision. So let's say you find yourself in that type of situation where you do have just a mishmash of stuff. Nothing's been built on this kind of sustainable model. You do have agents that are all on the wrong splits and stuff like that. How do you start to set the vision for where the team is going that will help the people that are already there not want to bail immediately, right? Because people hate change, and start to catch the vision of where the team is going, to the point where they might want to stay and kind of hang on through that transition, even if it means adjusting their splits or trading some of their splits for different benefits in other areas, and just kind of staying on through that transition. Because I think that's where a lot of team owners and leaders would start to go, ooh, I don't know if I can do all that, because essentially I'm putting my entire existing team at risk in the hopes of maybe building this new thing that I'd have to essentially start from scratch. So I think, to me, that's a first day problem of setting the vision that makes the people that you want to keep want to stay. So what would you say to those people that are in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just an open conversation with those that are around you currently. I guess first I would say get clear in terms of what the type of business you want. If most team owners it's super chaotic, they're super stressed, they have a lot of overhead, they're not tracking properly, they don't have systems running their business. So I would get clear on where you wanted the business to be. And then you're just getting people to see that, if I can help you focus more on the things that make you money and less on the things that, are more administrative in nature from a salesperson's perspective, would you trust me over the next, 12, 24, 36 months? It's a 1, 2, 3-year process to build it out. And as I add, different services that make your job easier, it allow you to sell more homes and focus more on dollar productive activities. Our compensation structure is going to change. Mm-hmm. And most agents, understand that. We take people through that iteration of, if we determine that you have a 20% issue, we have some teams that have like 20+% mismatch between the level of service they're providing and the splits. They're overpaying by 20%. Mm-hmm. And so we just have to guide them through what that looks like. Mm-hmm. And it's just open conversations, about, the reason, so a team leader that's doing a bunch of production would sit down with their team and say, hey, the reason I'm doing all these deals, it's because I've kind of messed some things up in terms of, how this thing is structured, and just talk openly and say, guys, I don't want to work with buyers, so that's something that I can commit to getting out of. I did 30 buyer deals last year. I can commit to getting out of those deals, and adding more value to you guys in these ways, but we're going to have to adjust splits along the way. And you've got to trust me, and you've got to ask for that trust, and you've got to deliver on it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right. Those would be interesting conversations, but it's good to know that you guide people through that. There is a way through it. It's not something that's going to automatically blow up the team just because you start kind of moving in this direction. About setting that vision that it is a long-term but incremental step-by-step process, and we're going to have a conversation and make sure that you're comfortable at every stage. And if we determine together that the arrangement just isn't quite working, we're going to get it to the point where it works for everyone involved, kind of at every step of the way. Makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, it depends on your leadership qualities you've shown up to that point, how much trust you inspire in the people that are on your team. Sure. But that's another story. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're running around like a crazy person all the time, pissed off at all the deals you're doing and, barking at your agents, then you may not be able to manage that swing. But yeah, if you're at the point in your journey where, even you just want to see the different stages of growth laid out, go to realestatebusinessgrowth.com. realestatebusinessgrowth.com. I put together a report, 6 stages of growth, the questions you need to ask yourself, the systems you need to be building at each stage of growth, what your team looks like, the amount of money you'll be making, the amount of hours you'll be working. So you can grab that report over there. That's awesome. Thanks, Matt, for our time today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.